Hello there. Well, as you well know, I usually do slideshows unless I have a longer piece that I'm going to read. And that's certainly the case today. I'm going to read to you from Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's her autobiography. And this particular passage is a description of her graduation from junior high school, from a segregated junior high school. I'm going to have to do what I do or used to do with my kids. I'm going to take my glasses off because I like to read with my eyes naked. The principal welcomed parents and friends and asked the Baptist minister to lead us in prayer. His invocation was brief and punchy, and for a second I thought we were getting back on the high road to right action. When the principal came back to the dais, however, his voice had changed. Sounds always affected me profoundly, and the principal's voice was one of my favorites. During assembly, it melted and lowed weakly into the audience. It had not been in my plan to listen to him, but my curiosity was piqued, and I straightened up to give him my attention. He was talking about Booker T. Washington, our late great leader, who said we can be as close as the fingers on the hand, etc. Then he said a few vague things about friendship, and the friendship of kindly people to those less fortunate than themselves. With that his voice nearly faded, thin away, like a river diminishing to a stream and then to a trickle. But he cleared his throat and said, "Our speaker tonight, who is also our friend, came from Texarkana to deliver the commencement address, but due to the irregularity of the train schedule, he's going to, as they say, speak and run." He said that we understood and wanted the man to know that we were most grateful for the time he was able to give us, and then something about how we were willing always to adjust to another's program, and without more ado, I give you Mr. Edward Donlevy. Not one but two white men came through the door off stage. The shorter one walked to the speaker's platform, and the tall one moved over to the center seat and sat down. But that was our principal's seat, and already occupied. The dislodged gentleman bounced around for a long breath or two before the Baptist minister gave him his chair. Then, with more dignity than the situation deserved, the minister walked off the stage. Donlevy looked at the audience once. On reflection, I'm sure that he wanted only to reassure himself that we were really there, adjusted his glasses, and began to read from a sheaf of papers. He was glad to be here and to see the work going on just as it was in the other schools. At the first amen from the audience, I willed the offender to immediate death by choking on the word. But amens and yes sirs began to fall around the room like rain through a ragged umbrella. He told us of the wonderful changes we children in stamps had in store. The Central School, naturally, the white school was central, had already been granted improvements that would be in use in the fall. A well-known artist was coming from Little Rock to teach art to them. They were going to have the newest microscopes and chemistry equipment for their laboratory. Mr. Donlevy didn't leave us long in the dark over who made these improvements available to Central High, nor were we to be ignored in the general betterment scheme he had in mind. He said that he had pointed out to people at a very high level that one of the first-line football tacklers at Arkansas Agricultural and Mechanical College had graduated from good old Lafayette County Training School. Here fewer amens were heard. Those few that did break through lay dully in the air with the heaviness of habit. He went on to praise us. He went on to say how he had bragged that one of the best basketball players at Fisk sank his first ball right here at Lafayette County Training School. The white kids were going to have a chance to become Galileos and Madame Curies and Edisons and Gauguins. And our boys, the girls, weren't even in on it. Would try to be Jesse Owenses and Joe Lewises. Owens and the Brown Bomber were great heroes in our world, but what school official in the white Gotham of Little Rock had the right to decide that those two men must be our only heroes? Who decided that for Henry Reed to become a scientist, he had to work like George Washington Carver as a bootblack to buy a lousy microscope? Bailey was obviously always going to be too small to be an athlete. So which concrete angel glued to what county seat had decided that if my brother wanted to become a lawyer, he had to first pay penance for his skin by picking cotton and hoeing corn and studying correspondence books at night for 20 years? The man's dead words fell like bricks around the auditorium, and too many settled in my belly. Constrained by hard-learned manners, I couldn't look behind me, but to my left and right, the proud graduating class of 1940 had dropped their heads. Every girl in my row had found something new to do with her handkerchief. Some folded the tiny squares into love knots, some into triangles, but most were wadding them, then pressing them flat on their yellow laps. On the dais, the ancient tragedy was being replayed. Professor Parsons sat, a sculptor's reject, rigid. His large, heavy body seemed devoid of will or willingness, and his eyes said he was no longer with us. The other teachers examined the flag, which was draped stage right, or their notes, or the windows which opened on our now famous playing diamond. Graduation, the hush-hush magic time of frills and gifts and congratulations and diplomas, was finished for me before my name was called. The accomplishment was nothing. The meticulous maps drawn in 3 colors of ink, learning and spelling decasyllabic words, memorizing the whole of the Rape of the Lucrece, it was nothing. Don Levy had exposed us. We were maids and farmers, handymen and washerwomen, and anything higher that we aspired to was farcical and presumptuous. Then I wished that Gabriel Prosser and Nat Turner had killed all white folks in their beds, and that Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated before the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, and that Harriet Tubman had been killed by that blow on her head, and Christopher Columbus had drowned in the Santa Maria. It was awful to be Negro and have no control over my life. It was brutal to be young and already trained to sit quietly and listen to charges brought against my color and no chance of defense. We should all be dead, I thought. I should like to see us all dead, one on top of the other, a pyramid of flesh with the white folks on the bottom as the broad base, then the Indians with their silly tomahawks and teepees and wigwams and treaties, the Negroes with their mops and recipes and cotton sacks and spirituals sticking out of their mouths. The Dutch children should all stumble in their wooden shoes and break their necks. The French should choke to death on the Louisiana Purchase, 1803, while silkworms ate all the Chinese and their stupid pigtails. As a species, we were an abomination. All of us. Don Levy was running for election and assured our parents that if he won, we could count on having the only colored paved playing field in that part of Arkansas. Also, He never looked up to acknowledge the grunts of acceptance. Also, we were bound to get some new equipment for the home economics building and the workshop. He finished, and since there was no need to give any more than the most perfunctory thank yous, he nodded to the men on the stage, and the tall white man who was never introduced joined him at the door. They left with the attitude that now they were off to something really important. The graduation ceremonies at Lafayette County Training School had been a mere preliminary. The ugliness they left was palpable. An uninvited guest who wouldn't leave. The choir was summoned and sang a modern arrangement of Onward Christian Soldiers, with new words pertaining to graduates. Seeking their place in the world. But it didn't work. Eloise, the daughter of the Baptist minister, recited Invictus, and I could have cried at the impertinence of, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. My name had lost its ring of familiarity, and I had to be nudged to go receive my diploma. All my preparations had fled. I neither marched up to the stage like a conquering Amazon, nor did I look in the audience for Bailey's nod of approval. Marguerite Johnson, I heard the name again. My honors were read, there were noises in the audience of appreciation, and I took my place on stage as rehearsed. I thought about colors I hated: ecru, puce, lavender, beige, and black. There was shuffling and rustling around me, then Henry Reed was giving his valedictory address. To be or not to be? Hadn't he heard the white folks? We couldn't be. So the question was a waste of time. Henry's voice came out clear and strong. I feared to look at him. Hadn't he got the message? There was no nobler in the mind for Negroes because the world didn't think we had minds, and they let us know it. Outrageous fortune? Now that was a joke. When the ceremony was over, I had to tell Henry Reed some things. That is, if I still cared. Not rub, Henry. Erase. Ah, there's the erase. Us. Henry had been a good student in elocution. His voice rose on tides of promise and fell on waves of warnings. The English teacher had helped him to create a sermon winging through Hamlet's soliloquy. To be a man, a doer, a builder, a leader, or to be a tool, an unfunny joke, a crusher of funky toadstools. I marveled that Henry could go through with the speech as if we had a choice. I had been listening and silently rebutting each sentence with my eyes closed. Then there was a hush, which in an audience warns that something unplanned is happening. I looked up and saw Henry Reed, the conservative, the proper, the A student, turn his back to the audience and turn to us, the proud graduating class of 1940, and sing, nearly speaking, lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. It was the poem written by James Weldon Johnson. It was the music composed by J. Rosamond Johnson. It was the Negro National Anthem. Out of habit, we were singing it. Our mothers and fathers stood in the dark hall and joined the hymn of encouragement. A kindergarten teacher led the small children onto the stage, and the buttercups and daisies and bunny rabbits marked time and tried to follow. Stony the road we trod, Bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. Every child I knew had learned that song with his ABCs, and along with Jesus loves me, this I know. But I personally had never heard it before. Never heard the words, despite the thousands of times I had sung them. Never thought they were anything to do with me. On the other hand, the words of Patrick Henry had made such an impression on me that I had been able to stretch myself tall and trembling and say, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And now I heard, really, for the first time, we have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. While echoes of the song shivered in the air, Henry Reed bowed his head, said thank you, and returned to his place in the line. The tears that slipped down many faces were not wiped away in shame. We were on top again. As always, again, we survived. The depths had been icy and dark, but now a bright sun spoke to our souls. I was no longer simply a member of the proud graduating class of 1940. I was a proud member of the wonderful, beautiful Negro race. Oh, black known and unknown poets, how often have your auctioned pains sustained us? Who will compute the lonely nights made less lonely by your songs, or the empty pots made less tragic by your tales? If we were a people much given to revealing secrets, we might raise monuments and sacrifice to the memories of our poets. But slavery cured us of that weakness. It may be enough, however, to have it said that we survive in exact relationship to the dedication of our poets. Include preachers, musicians, and blues singers.